She cheated on me with 5. And the reckoning was brutal. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to write one of these posts, but here I am. I need to get this out before I lose my mind. It all started 2 months ago. My wife, Emily, had been acting strangely, more distant, more secretive. She'd always been affectionate, always quick to show love. But lately, she'd been glued to her phone, laughing at messages she never shared, going out late for work meetings, and coming home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I ignored it at first. I told myself I was paranoid. But paranoia turns to certainty when you have proof. It happened by accident. She left her laptop open one night while she was in the shower, and I saw a name pop up on her messages, Mike. A message preview followed. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. I felt my stomach drop. My hands were clammy as I clicked the message thread. What I found shattered me. Mike wasn't the only one. There were more, 5 men. Each had their own little chat window, their own pet names, their own plans. 5 separate affairs. There was Brandon, the gym trainer, who had been helping her stay in shape in more ways than one. David, a co-worker, who apparently enjoyed their business trips a little too much. Liam, an old college flame, rekindled under my nose. Eric, the neighbor, who had been stopping by while I was at work. And, of course, Mike, the newest addition to her collection. I sat there in shock, scrolling through months of messages, pictures, and plans made right under my nose. She was playing all of them just like she had played me. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm out. No. I started planning. If she wanted to play games, she had no idea the game she had just entered. The first step was information. If I was going to do this right, I needed to know everything. Every move, every lie, every moment she thought she had gotten away with. I spent the next week gathering intel. I cloned her phone using an old spyware tool I had once used to track a lost device. Now, it served a much darker purpose. Every text, every call, every location update, it all fed straight to me. And what I found made my blood boil. Emily had a routine. Mondays and Thursdays were for Brandon at the gym. Tuesdays belonged to David, the business partner. Wednesdays were for Liam, the nostalgic flame. Fridays? That was Eric's night, right next door, right under my nose. And then there was Mike, the wild card, who got weekends when I thought she was visiting her sister. The sheer audacity of it disgusted me. But I didn't let my anger get the best of me. Instead, I carefully documented everything. Screenshots, recordings, dates, times. I wanted to make sure I had her exactly where I wanted her when the time came. Then, I set the first trap. I created a fake profile, an alias, someone irresistible. A wealthy, powerful man with a taste for danger. I started following her social media, dropping subtle hints, breadcrumbs for her to follow. It didn't take long before she bit the bait. She messaged first. "Hey there. You seem interesting." That was all I needed. My wife had just fallen into my own web. I played my role perfectly. The wealthy, mysterious businessman. Charming, confident, just out of reach. The kind of man a thrill-seeker like Emily couldn't resist. Our conversations were slow at first, light flirting, playful banter. I let her take the lead, let her feel like she was in control. And then, I escalated. "You seem like trouble," I messaged one evening. "The kind of woman a man like me should stay away from." She responded within minutes. "Maybe you should. But where's the fun in that?" I smirked at the screen. Hook, line, and sinker. From that point on, she was obsessed. Late-night messages, suggestive photos, whispered fantasies. She was falling for a man who didn't exist, and I was reveling in every moment of it. But I wasn't just leading her on, I was setting her up. I started planting seeds of doubt, making her question the stability of her double life. "How do I know you're really mine?" I asked one night. How do I know you're not playing games with me? She assured me she wasn't. Swore that she wasn't like that. The irony almost made me laugh. And then, I gave her a challenge. Meet me. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then, she agreed. I had her exactly where I wanted her. The night of our meeting arrived. I told her to wear something elegant, something that would make heads turn. She eagerly agreed, sending me a picture of the red dress she planned to wear. I told her I'd be waiting at an upscale lounge downtown. Of course, I never intended to be there. Instead, I sat in my car outside our house, watching as she left. The moment she drove off, I made my move. I had changed the locks earlier that day. Her key would be useless now. I went inside, packed a bag with only the essentials, and left a single envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, printed screenshots of every conversation, every picture, every lie. Then, I called her from an unknown number. Change of plans, I said, disguising my voice. Meet me at the hotel across the street. She rushed there, heart racing, anticipation thick in the air. But when she arrived, there was no charming stranger waiting, only another envelope at the front desk, this one containing a single note: check your kitchen. Her night of seduction had just turned into a nightmare. The moment she opened that kitchen envelope, everything in her world shattered. The text messages, the pictures, the lies, all of it, spread out before her like evidence in a courtroom. I had left nothing out. Her calls to me went straight to voicemail. Her messages went unread. And then, the real fun began. I had scheduled 5 identical packages to be delivered, one to each of her lovers. Each package contained the same evidence, with one extra twist: a letter, personally signed by me, detailing exactly how she had betrayed not only me but them as well. Then, I sat back and watched the chaos unfold. Emily didn't come home that night. I knew she wouldn't. I could only imagine the look on her face when she read my letter, the pit in her stomach as she realized her world had collapsed. I checked the delivery notifications. The evidence had reached every single one of her lovers. The phone calls started rolling in, but I ignored them all. Brandon, David, Liam, Eric, and Mike, they were all learning the truth at the same time. The texts from Emily became frantic, desperate. Where are you? Please, let me explain. I turned off my phone. The next morning, I drove past our house. Her car was still gone. But someone else was there, Eric, the neighbor. He was pacing in the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, probably trying to call her. He looked furious. I parked down the street, watching as David's car pulled up moments later. Then came Brandon. One by one, they all arrived, each man staring at the house they had all been betrayed in. Then, the shouting began. I rolled down my window, listening as the chaos unfolded. Accusations, threats, rage spilling out into the front yard. Then, Emily pulled up. I'll never forget the look on her face, pure horror. She had no way out. Emily was trapped. The moment she stepped out of her car, all 5 of her lovers were waiting. The air was thick with tension, accusations flying from every direction. What the hell is this, Emily? David spat, holding up a stack of printed messages. Brandon stepped forward, muscles tense. You played all of us. Her face turned ghostly pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Eric crossed his arms. We trusted you. We cared about you. And this is how you repay us.
Good.
Mike, usually the laid-back one, had fire in his eyes. How long did you think you could keep this up? Emily stumbled back, tears welling in her eyes. I can explain. No, Liam said, shaking his head. You can't. The weight of her lies, her deception, came crashing down. She had no way to manipulate, no excuse to worm her way out. She was at the mercy of the storm she had created. And then, her phone rang. She fumbled to answer it. My name flashed on the screen. I spoke, my voice calm, controlled. How does it feel, Emily? To have no escape. Her legs gave out beneath her, and she collapsed onto the pavement. I watched from a distance, savoring every second. Emily's world had already started to crumble, but I wasn't done. Not yet. I watched from a distance as she begged and pleaded with the men she had deceived. Their rage was unrelenting. One by one, they turned away from her, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her lies. Then, she turned her attention to me. Her voice was shaky when she called. Please, we can talk about this. I let the silence stretch, enjoying her desperation before I finally spoke. Talk. Like the way you talked to Brandon. To David. To all of them. She sobbed into the phone. I made mistakes, but I love you. I always have. I laughed, a slow, deliberate sound that sent shivers down her spine. Love? You don't even know the meaning of the word. Then, I delivered the final blow. Check your email. Moments later, I heard a strangled gasp. She had found what I sent, divorce papers, signed and sealed. Alongside them, a compilation of every incriminating detail, sent to her employer, her family, and everyone she held dear. Her reputation, her life, everything she had built on deception, it was all gone. Emily screamed my name through the phone, but I had already hung up. I walked away, finally free. Emily's world had been torn apart, but there was one last thing left to do, watch her unravel. She called me again, her voice hoarse from crying. Please, let's talk. Face to face. I agreed. But it would be on my terms. We met at a small cafe, neutral ground. She arrived first, eyes darting around anxiously. When she saw me, she nearly broke down right there. I don't know what to say, she whispered, clutching her trembling hands together. Say nothing, I said coldly, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were the finalized divorce papers, her signature the last missing piece. Her fingers hovered over the document. Is there any way, any chance, you could forgive me? I leaned forward, my voice a deadly whisper. Did you forgive me when you were with them? She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was stupid. I was selfish. I never wanted to lose you. I gave her nothing but silence. Then, the final nail in the coffin. You should check your bank account. Her breath hitched. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking as she opened her banking app. Then, her face drained of all color. I had emptied it. Every cent. You didn't think I'd let you walk away with anything, did you? I asked, standing up. You deserve nothing. Emily's sobs followed me out the door. But I didn't look back. She had played her game. Now, it was over. I walked away from that cafe with nothing but the clothes on my back and the satisfaction of knowing that I had taken everything from her. I had given her what she deserved, but I wasn't done yet. I had a new life to build. The next morning, I boarded a flight to a place where no one knew me. A small coastal town, far from the memories of Emily and her betrayals. I had liquidated all my assets, leaving her with nothing but regret and an empty bank account. I rented a quiet house by the sea, spending my days watching the waves crash against the shore. The anger that had fueled me for so long was slowly replaced by something else, peace. I was free, truly free, for the first time in years. Then, one evening, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I knew exactly who it was. I let it ring. I let her desperation grow. And then, finally, I answered. Please, Emily's voice trembled on the other end. I have nothing. I have no one. I don't know what to do. I took a slow breath, letting the silence stretch between us. Not my problem. She sobbed, trying to compose herself. I just want to see you. To talk. Maybe we can fix this. I chuckled, the sound cold and empty. Fix this? You think this is something you can fix? I made a mistake, she whispered. I was stupid. I was selfish. But I love you. I sighed. Emily, you didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again. She didn't respond. I could hear her breathing, hear the weight of her consequences settling over her like a crushing wave. And then, I ended it for good. I hope you enjoy the life you built for yourself, I said. Goodbye, Emily. I hung up and blocked her number. That was the last time I ever heard from her. I stepped outside, letting the cool ocean breeze wash over me. My past was behind me, and for the first time in a long time, my future was mine to shape. Months passed, and I had finally settled into my new life. The days were quiet, the nights peaceful. No more lies, no more betrayals, just me and the ocean. Then, one evening, as I walked along the shore, I felt a presence. Someone was watching me. I turned, scanning the deserted beach, but saw nothing. Just the waves rolling in and the distant glow of the town's streetlights. I shook it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. But the feeling lingered. The next morning, I found an envelope on my doorstep. No return address. No name. Just my own handwriting staring back at me, "We're not finished." A chill ran down my spine. Emily was gone. I had made sure of it. So who had left this? I stepped inside, locking the door behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. The past, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. I spent the day convincing myself it was a prank. A coincidence. Someone playing games with me. But deep down, I knew better. That night, I barely slept. Every creak, every rustle of the wind outside sent my pulse racing. I kept my phone beside me, my mind running through every possibility. Had one of Emily's lovers found me? Had she somehow tracked me down? The next morning, another envelope arrived. This time, it wasn't just a note. Inside was a photograph of me. Taken the night before, while I had been sitting on my porch, staring at the sea. I bolted up from my chair, scanning the horizon, the rooftops, the alleyways. But there was no one. Just an eerie, suffocating emptiness. Whoever was watching me, they weren't done yet. I clenched the photo in my hands. If they wanted a game, they were about to realize. I wasn't playing anymore. The weight of the photograph pressed heavy in my hands. Someone had been watching me, tracking me. I had spent so long believing I was in control, but now the game had turned. I wasn't safe. That night, I sat in the dark, staring out the window, waiting for movement. Every shadow seemed longer, every sound amplified. The ocean, once my source of peace, now felt ominous, an endless abyss hiding unseen eyes. I needed to act. The next morning, I drove into town and bought a security system, cameras, motion detectors, alarms. I installed them myself, ensuring no blind spots, no weaknesses. I wasn't taking chances. Then, another envelope arrived. Inside, a single note, "You look scared." I clenched my fists. Whoever this was, they were enjoying this. They wanted me rattled. But I wasn't the same man I had been when I first uncovered Emily's betrayal. I had learned how to plan, how to wait, how to strike when the time was right. I checked the footage from the cameras. Hours of nothing, until, just after midnight, a shadow moved near my porch. A hooded figure stood at the edge of the frame, watching. Then, slowly, they turned and walked away. They weren't in a rush. They weren't afraid. They wanted me to know they were there. I grabbed my keys and a bag I had packed weeks ago, in case I ever needed to disappear again. But this time, I wasn't running. I was hunting. I gripped the steering wheel as I drove through the quiet streets. Whoever was stalking me thought they had the upper hand. They thought I was afraid. They were wrong. I parked a few blocks away from my house and cut the engine, waiting. Watching. The street was empty, but I knew they would come. They wanted to rattle me. I'd turn the game on them. Hours passed before I saw movement. A shadow flitted across the street, moving toward my house. The figure stopped at my porch, just as they had the night before. Watching. Waiting. I slipped out of the car, moving silently. My heart pounded, but my mind was clear. This wasn't about fear. This was about control. Step by step, I closed the distance. The figure hadn't noticed me yet, too focused on my darkened windows. I could hear my own breath, steady, measured. Then, I spoke. Looking for something. The figure whipped around, but I was already on them, slamming them against the wall. A grunt of pain, a struggle, but I had the upper hand. The hood fell back, revealing a familiar face. Emily. Her eyes were wild, desperate. I had to see you, she gasped. I had to explain. I stared at her, rage simmering just beneath the surface. Explain. My voice was cold, deadly. After everything, you show up like this. Tears filled her eyes, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I tightened my grip. You thought you could haunt me, scare me into letting you back in. She shook her head frantically. I needed to see you. I leaned in close. You don't get to need anything from me. Her breath hitched, and for the first time, I saw true fear in her eyes. This was my game now. I loosened my grip just enough for Emily to catch her breath, but I didn't let go. She trembled beneath my hold, eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. There's no way out, Emily, I said, my voice steady. Not this time. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The weight of her actions was finally pressing down on her. I just wanted to talk, she whispered. Talk. I scoffed. You spent months lying, sneaking, betraying me with 5 different men. You left me to rot in the hell you created. And now, you want to talk. She winced, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I made mistakes. No, Emily. I shook my head. You made choices. I released her, watching as she stumbled back, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She looked so small now, so broken. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. Her eyes widened as she heard the first voice message play, a compilation of her conversations, her deceit laid bare. Every confession, every betrayal, recorded. Her face turned ghostly pale. What are you going to do? I stepped closer. I already did it. At that moment, her phone vibrated. One message after another flooded in, Brandon, David, Liam, Eric, and Mike. They all knew. I had sent everything to them, just like I had planned from the start. Emily collapsed onto the ground, sobbing. Please, don't do this. I crouched down, looking her dead in the eyes. You already did this to yourself. Then, I walked away, leaving her in the ruins of the life she had built. The game was over. And I had won.